In a small village on the outskirts of the forest stood an ancient house known for its dark history. Legend said that this house was inhabited by a brownie, the spirit of an ancient palace, who was cursed and turned into an evil creature. The villagers always tried not to attract his attention and not to disturb his calmness, so as not to anger him and not to attract trouble. One evening, when the sun had already set over the horizon, the young family decided to move into this ill-fated house. They knew nothing about its dark history and ignored the warnings of the old-timers. For them it was just a beautiful old manor. The first few weeks passed quietly. The family enjoyed their new home, unaware that they would soon become a toy in the hands of a sinister brownie. But one night everything changed. It all started with a quiet rustle coming from under the floor. Then the doors began to creak, as if someone was trying to get into the house. The family woke up from this noise. Their hearts beat faster, and fear gripped everyone. When they came out of their rooms, they saw a faint glow in the darkness of the palace. They were covered with cold sweat. They followed the light and found themselves in a dungeon that they had not noticed before. The light led them to an old mirror that hung on the wall. As they approached, they saw a distorted image of themselves in his reflection. Suddenly, the mirror began to crack, breaking into thousands of pieces. At that moment, a brownie appeared in front of them. He was a small and ugly creature with red eyes and fangs. His gaze was piercing, and he looked much scarier than they could have imagined. The family found themselves locked in a dungeon with a creepy brownie that began to slowly approach them, making shrill screams. They were panicking, trying to find a way out of this. They discovered an old door in the dungeon wall. They decided to try to open it, hoping that this might be the way out. With trembling in their voice and uncertain hands, they turned the old rusty handle. The door creaked and suddenly swung open, revealing a passage into an abandoned corridor. They hurried through the darkness without turning around so as not to see what was happening behind them. However, as they moved forward, they felt that something was following them. Heavy breathing and a cold wind tickled their backs. The family hastened their steps, but the sinister pursuer did not lag behind. Suddenly, the corridor narrowed and turned into a dark room with no visible exits. The family was trapped, from which there was no escape. They turned around and saw a brownie standing on the threshold. The brownie laughed and made shrill sounds, setting them up for horror. He stepped forward and his hand reached out to them. The family screamed in despair and tried to fight back, but they were hopelessly captive in his power. And then, at the most critical moment, light entered the room. The fire froze in the burner, and an elder came out of it, clutching a cross in his hands. He turned to the brownie and began to recite an ancient prayer, invoking the forces of light and goodness. Under the influence of prayer, the brownie disappeared, and the dark room was filled with a blissful light. The family was left amazed and relieved to realize that they had been rescued from a terrible creature. The family thanked the elder for his salvation. He explained to them that he was the last remaining guardian in this cursed house and that his goal was to expel the sinister brownie. The elder escorted the family back to the main building of the house, where they found peace and security. He told them about how the brownie was cursed centuries ago and became a creature of evil, haunting everyone who dared to settle in this house. With the help of his prayers and faith in goodness, the elder was able to weaken the curse and expel the brownie from the dungeon. He offered the family to stay under his protection so that they would no longer face the horrors associated with this place. the family gratefully accepted his offer and decided to stay. They realized that despite the beauty and attractiveness of the exterior of the house, it hid dark secrets and dangers that were better avoided. Since then, the family has lived under the protection of the elder, who guarded the house from the invasion of evil forces. They found peace and security, but always remembered that brownies and gloomy creatures can hide in the most unexpected places, and were wary of attracting such evil to themselves. So ended the story of a sinister brownie who brought fear and horror into the life of an unsuspecting family. It became a reminder that sometimes dark and unexplored forces lurk in the most ordinary places and that it is not always worth exploring their boundaries.